Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Slay a Tray Thursday. Today we're talking all things eco-casting, and I am so excited. There are tons of different eco-casting mediums. There's Jesmonite AC100, AquaCast. There's mixed mold, which you can find at like your local Michael's. And then there's also Resincrete, which is by J Diction, which is my personal favorite. There are so many out there on the market, and you just have to find the one that works for you. So today we're going to be using two eco-casting powders. We're going to use mixed mold, and we're going to use Resincrete. So mixed mold is not my favorite. I don't love it. If you've watched this channel at all over the past, however long it's been, you've seen me use it, and I don't love it. However, I bought it on sale, and I bought like 3 5-pound buckets of this stuff. And so I've been trying to get through it. This is my very last bucket. We are finally at the finish line, and we are going to use the rest of this, and I will never, ever, ever, ever buy it again. And we're also going to use my very favorite, which is Resincrete. This is from J Diction. It is, so good. I love the finish of this product. I have never had issues with it at all. It cures quickly. It dries quickly. I can't say enough great things about it. So eco-casting powders are typically a part powder and then a part of some sort of liquid. So Jesmonite AC100, it has its own liquid that it comes with. So you mix the percentage of powder to the percentage of liquid, and that's how that works. However, with Resincrete, mixed mold, AquaCast, a lot of your eco-based powders are going to be mixed with water, which I find to be very convenient and very easy. So with Resincrete and mixed mold, it's basically 10 parts of powder to 3 parts water. So if you have 10 grams of powder, you put in 3 grams of water. If you put in 100 grams of powder, then you put in 30 grams of water. It's all a big test in mathematics, I know. However, let me just share a little trick. Resincrete has a calculator on their website. So if you go to the J Diction website, there's actually a Resincrete calculator where you can put in the volume of your mold, and it will tell you exactly how much powder you need and exactly how much water you need, which is super helpful. The only thing is it is very exact. Exact. So I pad mine a little bit, like maybe 20, 25 grams. I usually have some left over, but I would rather have too much than not enough. So I do pad mine a little bit. You can always roll the dice and YOLO it, but I'm going to always add just a little bit extra. And with your eco-casting powders, it's all based on weight. It's not based on volume. So it's, like with a lot of your resin, it's a 1-to-1, a 2-to-1, things like that. This is based on weight, and it's pretty forgiving, honestly. I am a rule follower, so I am going to keep it as exact as I can. So if I know that I need 400 grams of powder, then I'm going to use 120 grams of water. That's just because I'm a rule follower. But a lot of people, they don't even measure. They just mix it up and they just get it to the consistency that they like. That makes me so, that just triggers my anxiety, because that's not how that works. There is a formula and you're supposed to follow it. The other piece is that typically you do your water first, and then you just dump your powder into your water and you give it a really good mix. I will say the one thing I do like about this particular mixed mold is that it comes in this bucket, which was very convenient, and it was easy to get it out. With the Resincrete, it comes in a zippy bag, so it has like the little Ziploc thing at the top. And it's a very good Ziploc, don't get me wrong. It is a very strong and secure little zipper on there, but it's kind of a pain to make sure it's fully aligned and that you have it completely sealed. And so the little bucket was actually convenient. So that is my positive thing about mixed mold. And when it comes to mixing your product, there are so many different schools of thought. Some people use a stick, some people use a fork. I personally use a spatula. That's just my preference. There is something to be said if you use a fork. It does kind of help to break up any lumps or clumps that you might have in there. But if you're also worried about clumps, you can also sift your powder before you put it in, and then that'll help to get rid of any of those. I'm not the biggest fan of the fork method, but it definitely can be helpful if you're, trying to break up any like large pieces that you might have. And the other thing I just want to throw out there is you don't have to be as precious about your mixing. This is at regular speed. I'm not making this any faster. With resin, you have to be so careful about not mixing in extra bubbles, but I am just going to go for it because it's totally fine. And just ignore that jar mold over there. I'm kind of obsessed with making candles right now. Well, I'm obsessed with the idea of making candles. So that's going to be a candle jar. Anyway, these are colorants for our eco casting powder. So J Diction has their own line of 10, which they might have more now. I'm not sure. I bought these a couple of years ago. They last a pretty long time. So when they originally came out, they just had those 10 mixed to mold. They also have some of their own colorants. There's also Homeware Design Co. Amazing line of colorants. Oh my gosh. So pigmented, such a variety of colors. They are more expensive than like your resin-crete dye or your mixed to mold, but they're quite good. There's also concrete powders that you can get, like colorants. So there's a lot of different ways that you can color your casting powder. It's really just whatever makes you happy. What I thought we would do is we would just break this up into 4 different colors. So I'm going to use the bowl, and then I have 3 cups with just the white, and then we're going to put some colorant in it, mix it up, and then we're just going to throw it into a mold and let it cure. And because your base is white, it is going to mute your colors. So just kind of keep that in mind, that your colors are going to be much lighter than they appear in the bottle. And I'm just going to use a mold that I have sitting to the side. You can use any mold you want. You could use a flat tray mold, a coaster mold. It doesn't matter. I've seen some people just use like parchment paper on a tabletop. Because this isn't that thick right now, I'm just going to use a mold. I have this keychain mold just sitting here, so I'm going to use that. I'm going to pour a very thin layer into just a bunch of the different letters. It really doesn't matter because we're going to break this up into small chips. So it doesn't matter really what mold you use as long as you just get it all poured and cured. So I am going to mix up the other colors, and I'm just going to repeat the same process. I'll mix them up. I'll pour them into the mold and let them cure. Mix to mold cure time is about an hour. So because these are thin, it's going to take a little bit longer. But honestly, I don't care if they break when I take them out of the mold because we're going to break them anyway. So if I break them taking them out, it's really not a problem either way. So I'll mix that up, and then we'll let this cure, and I'll see it back here in an hour, and we'll demold it, and then we'll move on to the next step. So an hour later, everything is cured, and I'm pretty excited. These look like massive Easter colors. I love how it just screams Easter. Even though this isn't for Easter, it screams Easter. And so I think that these colors are going to look really good in a white base. So I already broke parts of these, taking them out, which is no big deal. I'm just going to set them on a paper towel. What I find with mixed to mold, and this is one of the things that I don't like about it, I feel from my perspective that it's very wet and it sweats and it's gross. I really don't like it. If I do mold something and it has like a wet, slimy feel to it, it zaps every ounce of joy that this normally brings me. It just zaps it out. It's like it's leaving this gross, filmy residue on my fingers, and it's causing me some severe stress, just so you know. And if you're wondering how I survived having toddlers, that is a very valid thought, because I almost didn't. I did not let my kids feed themselves until they were old enough to hold a fork and not make a mess. I know I have no comment on my own behavior. So I originally thought I would just break these with my fingers. That wasn't really the best plan for that. This stuff dries really hard. I will say, even though it was a torturous pain because it was gross and slimy. It dries really, really hard. This stuff, I mean, whether it's this or your Resin-Crete or your Aquacast, whatever you're using, it dries very strong after you give it, a few days, a week. It's very strong and it is very difficult to break. Now, I'm not saying that if you dropped a vase on the floor that it wouldn't break, because it would. But breaking up these letters was a little bit more challenging than I thought. So I originally just grabbed a hammer and started banging the heck out of them. And that worked relatively well. But I needed some of the pieces to be smaller. And so I figured I would put them into a Ziploc bag and then take that bag, put the bag on the floor, and then now I have a concrete floor and a hammer. So I was about to say we're getting banged from both sides, but then I thought maybe that's not the way to phrase that. And then I was going to say it's hard on both sides. And then I thought maybe that's not the way we should phrase that either. So I guess I'm just going to go with I put it on the concrete floor to give it well, you fill in the words. And here we have it. After much hammering, after lots of destruction, let's go with that. After lots of destruction, we have a bowl of chips. And now we can move on to our tray. I have had this tray mold for ages. And it's one of those where you get it, you order, it's 3 a.m., you're on Temu and you're buying like resin stuff because you can't sleep. And so I bought this mold years ago and it went into a box and I've never used it. So I was so excited to find it when I was cleaning out my space and decided that I was going to use it today. I thought it would be perfect. And because sadly, all of my mixed mold is gone, insert crying kitty, or just a really, really happy kitty because I never again have to use mixed mold. Anyway, it's gone. So I'm using Resin-Crete and I'm so grateful, so happy. I am mixing up 500 grams of Resin-Crete. So that means that's 150 grams of water. I know the math skills are massively impressive. I am using room temperature water. I typically use room temperature water. Here's the thing. I feel like if you go too hot, it cures too fast. I don't know if that's actually true or if that's just some sort of like misfiring in my brain, but I feel like that. So I use room temperature water. I always put the water in first and then my Resin-Crete follows. And I'm not exactly sure how much to put in, so I'm just going to go for the whole thing. I feel like that's a pretty good ratio. It doesn't look too chunky and it still is flowable. So yeah, let's go with that. So I'm just going to pour this in and then I'm going to use my spatula to kind of push it down the sides. When I broke up the pieces, I thought they were smaller than they were, but some of these pieces are still pretty chunky. And since we're already going to be sanding it, it shouldn't be that much more work, right? That's the dream. So yeah, so I'm just going to push this down the sides and then I'm going to let this cure for about an hour or so. Resin-Crete's cure time is closer to 30 minutes, but I'm going to give it a little bit of extra time just to make sure everything is good and solid before I try to take it out of the mold. And an hour later, we are all cured. And oh my, there are some serious chunky pieces on the back of this. It's going to be an adventure, that's for sure. And at first glance, I have to tell you, I kind of like it. Actually, I really like it. I love the way that those colors are just kind of peeking through. It's muted. It's kind of pastel. This is very much my vibe. I love soft pastels and like that cottagecore shabby chic kind of vibe. That is definitely me. So the front of this tray, I absolutely love. And as I'm sanding the back, by the way, so let's back up. It's only been an hour and I decided to sand immediately because I knew that the longer it cured, the harder it was going to be. So This was already so hard. I'm literally taking wire cutters and snipping off parts of the chips that are sticking out of the back because it is so hard. I cannot even sand them down. And I'm using a 60 grit sandpaper. This is now granted, those chips were a week old, so that's part of it. And they were awfully chunky. If I'm doing this again, if I was to do it again, I would definitely make those chips so much smaller. And I am wet sanding it, and the only reason I'm doing that is because I want to try to keep any of those particles from floating around in the air. So yeah, the water will help to keep those stuck down on the tray. It also makes it really messy and icky, which we all know how I feel about that. The other thing that if I was doing this again, not only would I make the pieces smaller, I would also invest in some sort of electric or battery operated sander. It is pretty brutal trying to do this with a sanding block. After 15, 20 minutes, my hands are, I am far too old for this. And it still needed more sanding even after the 15 to 20 minutes. And I finally gave up on the back and decided to move to the front. This is where I feel like I screwed up. So many ways, but this particular part. I loved this tray before sanding it. I thought that the way that the colors came through was absolutely perfect in my opinion, right? I liked it, the soft, the gentle. And by sanding it, it does a couple of things. One, I don't think a sanding block is the right way to go. I think if you're going to do it by hand, that you definitely want to use a sheet of sandpaper. At least that would be in my opinion. I found that I put some kind of deep grooves in some of the places on the tray where I just went a little crazy with the sanding block. I feel like I would have had more control with just a piece of sanding paper instead of the block, or obviously if you have some sort of small electric sander, that would have been ideal. One of the things that I really love about Resincrete is that the finish of the piece, it feels, it's so good. It is smooth and cold, and it's just this sensory overload for me. I love it. And after I sanded this, that wasn't the case anymore. Now, could I theoretically take and sand it with increasingly larger grit sandpaper, right? So your 60 or 80 or 122, whatever. Could I do that to get back to that finish? Probably. Am I going to? Probably not. And the reason why is because I don't love this tray anymore. I feel like I don't think it's hideous, but I feel like those colors are so much more pronounced now, and I really liked them muted. So I wish that I wouldn't have touched the front at all. I really liked the way it was. I think that's one of my lessons this week is that if you like it the way it is, don't keep messing with it. Just leave it. Even though maybe your plan was to do something different, if you don't love it or if you love it already, just leave it alone. Less is more, and I keep forgetting that. So I sanded the back for about 20 minutes, and then I worked on the front for another, 10 or 15 minutes. And the more I sanded it, the more I didn't love it anymore. And so what do we do when we don't love it? Besides, we stop doing what we're doing. We make another one. And so, yeah, I'm going to make another one, and I'm going to leave it alone this time. I made my chips a little bit differently this time. I mixed up my Resincrete the same way. I colored it the same way. But instead of putting it into the keychain mold, I just put it into a flat tray. Just kind of poured complementary color, not, well, I guess they're not complementary colors next to each other, but colors that would go together. I just poured them next to each other. That way, if they flowed into each other, it wasn't a big deal, and it would all just kind of work out. So I broke them up into tiny pieces the same way. I put them into a bag and then bashed them with a hammer until they were much smaller. And then I mixed up my Resincrete and then poured it in. So the exact same process. And some of my pieces of the Terrazzo chips, they actually stuck together. I think they weren't fully dry. I didn't give them quite as long. And so they kind of stuck together, and I had to break them up on the back. But all in all, not a big deal. And an hour later, this is what we're looking like. And I'm happy with it. I'm so happy with the front. The back, still has some lumps, not as bad as before, but still has some lumps. So I am going to go through and I'm going to sand it and I'm going to clip off the little things that are sticking up and to get that all finished. But I am not touching the front. I think it's absolutely perfect just the way it is on the front, so I'm going to leave it alone. And here they are side by side, and you can really tell the difference in the one that was sanded and the one that wasn't. If you really want something that's vibrant and really shows through, 100% sand it. But like, I don't love, see how there's like that big red chip and then there's like a big blue chip kind of below it? I don't like that. I think it looks weird and out of place. And that's partially the chip size and all of that, but I still don't love it. And you can also, I know you probably can't see it very well, but the texture is off. And the texture's off because of the sanding. I could go back, but I'm not going to. But anyway, yeah, I mean, is it hideous? No, it's not. It's okay. It's just not exactly what I was going for. But this one, yes, please. I love this so much. I don't even mind the bigger pieces. Over on kind of the far right side, there's some chunkier pieces that are all kind of clustered together. I don't mind it because they're not so like bright and in your face and just screaming, I'm here, look at me. So I think that this turned out really perfect actually. And we're at the end, and now it is time to seal. There are so many different sealers that you can use. This one happens to be my favorite. I love this wax. It's a concrete wax and it smells so good. I wish you guys could actually smell it because it is this beautiful citrusy blend and it's so nice. You can use wax. There are also concrete sealers, which I'm actually going to use on that jar that I was just showing you. I know I didn't show pouring it, but that is the candle jar that I made. You can also use, this is a concrete and masonry waterproofer. Louise Singleton actually uses this on her candles, so I thought I will give it a try on mine as well. But for the tray itself, I'm actually going to use the wax. And I would highly recommend using a microfiber cloth when you're doing this. I did not have one at hand, so I grabbed a paper towel, which is not necessarily bad. It's just that, paper towels are going to shred a little bit, and then you're going to end up with these little pieces of paper towels that you have to keep buffing out. So a microfiber cloth will make your life so much easier because it will make it to where you can put it down an even coat. And then when you buff it out, it just gives you a nicer finish. You have to work a little bit harder with a paper towel. It still gets the job done. It, just makes your life a little more difficult. But it does make a beautiful finish and it smells so good. I would recommend going back, 6 months and just waxing it again. I like to wax my things every 6 months to a year. Just if they start to look a little dim or dull, I'll wax them again. But look at that shine. It's stunning. With the paper towel, you do have it can have some streakiness. So definitely go for your microfiber cloth. But I think it's gorgeous. I absolutely love this second one. I think it is exactly what I wanted. Thank you for spending another Slay a Tray Thursday with me. I appreciate you guys being a part of this community, and please check out the other creators in the description box below. There are so many amazing people who are part of this every week, and I'm really excited for Kathy and Beverly's trays this week. Kathy did something really special, and Beverly too, so I can't wait to see them. And then catch us again in 2 weeks where we're going to be doing an autism tray. So in honor of Autism Awareness Month. So check us out in 2 weeks. Thanks again and hope to see you then.